Welcome to the Jenna Ellis Show, sponsored by Legacy Precious Metals. There has never been a better time to invest in precious metals. Visit legacypminvestments.com. That's legacypminvestments.com. Good evening and welcome to Jenna Ellis Tonight. I don't think conservatives have really understood how vastly unconstitutional and un-American the Biden administration truly is. This breaking yesterday from the Center for Immigration Studies. The government admission, Biden parole flights create security vulnerabilities at U.S. airports. DHS won't say which airports are receiving inadmissible aliens from abroad. So Mark Krikorian, who is the executive director of the Center for Immigration Studies, joined my radio program earlier today, and he had this to say. Listen.
Yeah, this program, the administration had announced, but hadn't really, drawn any attention to it, and they hadn't released how many people were coming through this program. Some of your listeners may have heard of something called CBP-1. It's a app that this administration is letting illegal aliens schedule their illegal immigration, literally, at the border with Mexico. This is like part two of that program, where people who aren't at the border, some of them may be back in their home countries, in Venezuela, Colombia, Ecuador, wherever. There's 9 countries that are covered. They can schedule their illegal immigration and then fly over the border directly into the United States. And the administration had not revealed how many people had used this, so we submitted a Freedom of Information Act request, and they did tell us 320,000 people last calendar year. What they still won't tell us, and the reason this was so alarming, even more alarming than that, is that they won't tell us what airports they're going to, because the flow of people, the volume of these inadmissible aliens, people who have no right to be here who are being let in, is creating security vulnerabilities at these airports. And the administration said they didn't want.
And you can hear that full interview at afr.net. Click on the link for Jenna Ellis in the Morning. Joining me now is Todd Starnes, who is the author of Twilight's Last Gleaming, Can America Be Saved? And a Salem radio host as well as Newsmax host. Todd, this is absolutely illegal. 320,000 illegal immigrants that Biden is just flying to destinations unknown in America.
Well, we have a pretty good indication of where those illegals are going. Most of them are going to areas that typically vote Republican. And we saw this happening in New York City, where illegals were dumped in a predominantly red section of Brooklyn, New York, as well as Queens. We've seen it happen in Tennessee, for example, where Chattanooga, Tennessee, where they were literally flying these planes in the dark of night into the local airport and just releasing these illegals into, again, a Republican stronghold. So the concern here, Jenna, is that there is clearly it's all about politics. But at the root of all of this, this is all about the census numbers and congressional redistricting, and that's one of the reasons why they want the illegals in these cities.
And Todd, what's so frustrating, what Mark Krikorian also let me know, is that there is essentially a loophole in immigration law for parole, and it's not criminal justice parole. It's something that allows for, if there is an emergency on the border, for example, an immigrant needs an appendectomy. They can take them to a hospital right over the border, but then bring them back. Or if someone needs to come and testify, for example, then they can bring that person over the border, have them testify, but then bring them back. And so Congress hasn't actually addressed this, and they are the ones that are responsible for legislatively checking the president's authority here. Why aren't Republicans more concerned about this?
Well, that's a fair question, and I'm not sure viewers are gonna like the answer. And the fact is that the Republicans just don't have the stomach, they don't have the fortitude to deal with the border issue. I mean, they're really good at holding hearings, they're really good at giving speeches. But when it comes to actually doing something, the Republicans are a do-nothing Congress. Now, I understand that the Senate, Republicans had the minority in the Senate, but we actually had the majority in the House. And look how long it took for us to actually impeach Alejandro Mayorkas. So again, if you really want to look at where the problem is, I think you're looking at it up on Capitol Hill right now with leadership that simply cannot lead right now.
And it is so frustrating, Todd Starnes, for Americans that are genuinely concerned about this, because we've seen in exit polling that the border crisis is the number one issue that concerns particularly Republicans, but even some disaffected Democrats who still recognize that America deserves sovereignty. And so we just saw Super Tuesday last night with both Biden and Donald Trump almost sweeping their respective primaries. So how much is this issue really going to need to be amplified by President Trump as the GOP nominee heading into November?
Well, I think this is the issue. Crime, the economy, and illegal immigration. That is the issue. It was interesting last night on MSDNC, where you had Joy Reid, Jen Psaki, and Rachel Maddow literally laughing and mocking Virginia voters, because you're right. The exit polling in Virginia, in the Commonwealth, immigration was at the top of the list. It's really striking that they would mock the good people of Virginia. Just a few weeks ago, word came out that a Venezuelan national living in this country illegally, he had been previously detained, then set free by Border Patrol, had sexually assaulted a 14-year-old child. And of course, we all know the story of Laken Riley in Georgia. I would recommend that all of those ladies on MSDNC might want to take a long, hard look at the autopsy report of Miss Riley. I doubt they will be giggling after they read that report.
Yeah, so well said, Todd Starnes. And Jen Psaki, who was the former press secretary for Joe Biden, also made disparaging comments against Republicans who are concerned about the border. And I'm thinking, she has children. Isn't she concerned at all that one of her children or her own family members might become a victim of violent crime due to illegal immigrants? I mean, this is something that is a national issue. It is a constitutional issue. It's a crisis at the border. And yet it doesn't seem like Republicans are even checking Democrats for laughing about it, and for the Biden administration not just doing nothing, but for affirmatively advancing the illegal immigration and being a conduit for it. And we only have about 20 seconds left, but your response.
Well, if I were President Trump, I would be holding rallies in major American cities like San Francisco, like Chicago's South Side, like the Bronx and Queens in New York. And I would be sending that message to voters who are disenfranchised right now. These are Democrat-based supporters who are now disenfranchised. Those are the people that I'd be going after with the message, we're going to secure the border.
Well said. Todd Starnes, and we'll be right back with more here on Jenna Ellis Tonight. Throughout history, there are clear moments that define our nation's path, and now you can own a piece of that history. I'm thrilled to announce the official Newt Gingrich contract with America coin from our friends at Legacy Precious Metals in partnership with Speaker Gingrich. This limited edition 1 ounce 99.99% silver coin commemorates the historic victory in 1994 when the Republican Party, under Speaker Gingrich's guidance, took control of Congress. The Newt Gingrich contract with America coin also symbolizes the transformative political platform that led to the landmark achievements like the overhaul of the U.S. welfare system and the Balanced Budget Act. This is a limited edition coin that will sell out. So whether you're looking for the perfect gift or you want to own a piece of history, act fast before they run out. The Newt Gingrich contract with America coin is more than an investment. It's a tribute to honest government and America. You can order it online at newtgingrichsilvercoin.com. That's newtgingrichsilvercoin.com, and use promo code Jenna, that's JENNA, to get $10 off your purchase. Go to newtgingrichsilvercoin.com now. So So, as a lawyer, all of this that the Biden administration is continuing to simply ignore or purposefully contravene the US Constitution really bothers me as an American. And I know that the Biden administration has not been particularly conservative by any stretch, but hey, Biden ran on the Democrat ticket. But it used to at least be that Democrats and Republicans weren't so far off each other on the political spectrum. I like to think of the political spectrum more as a bell curve than linear. When we think about it linearly, then we don't actually understand that conservatism is actually at the top of that bell curve. Why? Because we are trying to conserve the US Constitution. We are trying to conserve the rule of law. We're trying to conserve legitimacy in government that exists solely to preserve and protect the rights of Americans that come from God, our creator, not our government. And so when we think of it linearly, then we get the full leftist to the full left side that is totalitarianism and absolute tyranny. And then on the far, far right, we get total anarchy, no rule of law. Everyone can just do what's right in their own eyes. And if we see that scale as just completely linear, then there's not really a metric or a measurement or a plumb line of where on that scale Republicans and Democrats, all Americans genuinely should be. So again, I like to think of it as a bell curve and think about that as the very top. Genuine conservatism, a constitutional republic. That is what both parties should strive for. But really, a lot of establishment Republicans are actually to the left of that conservative position. And Democrats now are so far, far, far left that they are borderline totalitarian tyranny and into legitimately communism. And that's not an overstatement. And so when this headline came out yesterday from the Daily Mail, it said the Biden administration admits flying 320,000 migrants secretly into the United States to reduce the number of crossings at the border, has national security vulnerabilities. I don't even think that that is stating it enough. This is not only just a vulnerability, it's completely antithetical to the system. This begs the question, why don't Republicans care enough to call out Democrats on their fully unconstitutional positions? And this isn't just the Biden regime. As Todd Starnes said in the last segment, this is about conservatives that are too weak in the stomach to actually stand up and do what their oath of office requires, which is to be the check and balance on the executive branch. If we aren't voting for true conservatives that understand what maintaining the rule of law, national sovereignty, protecting our rights as Americans, then what good is our government? The political branch of Congress is supposed to be a check and balance on the executive through legislative means. That's why we have a separation of powers on the federal level. That's why our founders, in their infinite wisdom, established a constitutional republic, not a tyrannical monarchy or even a tyrannical oligarchy, like what we're seeing with the Biden regime and their cohorts in Congress and also the judiciary. These coordinate branches, and I wouldn't even say co-equal, because the judicial branch is supposed to be the weakest. They are coordinate, meaning that they possess limited powers on the federal level to do one thing: legitimate exercises of that power to preserve and protect the rights of Americans. Then we have powers that are distributed to we the people and the states. And so we don't just have a separation of powers horizontally from the federal level. We also have that vertically. The federal government doesn't possess all power, even in its three coordinate branches. There are powers that are reserved through the 9th and 10th Amendments of the US Constitution to the states and even to we the people. But the federal government has gotten so far out of hand. And so a lot of my listeners and a lot of you here on the Salem News Channel know that I ardently supported Governor Ron DeSantis in the GOP primary. And that's what primaries are for, because we are supposed to choose as Americans, as voters, the best candidate for office in every election, not just the presidential election. But this was a turning point, I think, in my view. And even the U.S. Constitution and how the U.S. Supreme Court, with a 9-0 opinion, put aside all of their political differences, whatever they think, love or hate Donald Trump, they made the right call in that 9-0 opinion. And honestly, if Soto Mayor can set aside her political bias and what I know she probably thinks personally about Donald Trump, then I can do that same thing and use my voice and my platform to at least push for the best possible option in our 2024 election. And that I said, I've seen enough. This despicable and blatant attempt to destroy America and give Democrats power. We cannot let this. Supreme Court did the right thing constitutionally yesterday for the rule of law. Trump remains on the ballot and will be the GOP nominee. I vastly prefer DeSantis for many policy reasons, but he is right that the majority of the GOP wanted to give Trump another chance. I will support Trump over Biden. There isn't a third-party candidate that is viable and supports my values overall. I like RFK Jr. a lot, but not enough. I have always said that I will use my vote and my voice for the best available choice in public offices, and among the choices we have, Trump is absolutely better than 4 more years of this ridiculous Biden regime. I'll still call out Trump and his advisors on policy issues like I have been, or give them credit when they're right, like I have been, because I am loyal to the principles of conservatism and America, not a politician. It's why I supported Trump in 2016 when many claimed I couldn't be a Christian and support him. But I am on the America train and always will be. We can't let Biden win a second term. I do believe that this is fundamentally the most important election in America's history. Why? Because we have a Biden regime that isn't just the third term of Obama, but is vastly worse than even the 8 years of the Obama administration. And the reason for that is because they are blatantly ignoring not just the text of the US Constitution and the obligations under Article 2 for the executive branch and Democrats in Article 1 of the US Constitution, but they are fundamentally ignoring the legitimacy of what the US government is supposed to do. And I will not stand by for some kind of petty in-house differences with the GOP and say that even though there are some things that I don't prefer about Trump or I prefer DeSantis to him, not use my vote and my voice in the best possible way to stop this ridiculous un-American Biden regime. So I hope that you will support unity and we will get Biden out of office and all of these Democrats come 2024. We'll be right back with more here on Jenna Ellis Tonight. As you know, my friend Mike Lindell has a passion to help everyone get the best sleep of their life. He didn't stop by simply creating the best pillow. Mike created the Giza Dream bed sheets. They look and feel great, which means an even better night's sleep for me, which is crucial for my busy schedule. Mike found the world's best cotton. It is ultra soft and breathable, but extremely durable. Mike's Giza sheets come with a 60-day money-back guarantee and a 10-year warranty. The Giza Dream Sheets come in a variety of sizes and colors. Mike's latest incredible deal is the sale of the year. For a limited time, you will receive 50% off the Giza Dream Sheets. You will also receive a set for as low as $29.98. So go to mypillow.com, click on the radio podcast square, and use the promo code Jenna. There you will find not only this amazing offer, but also deep discounts on all MyPillow products, including the MyPillow 2.0 mattress topper, which I have and I love, the MyPillow kitchen towel sets, and now even flannel sheets and so much more. We definitely need flannel sheets for as crazy as all of this weather has been lately. So go to mypillow.com and make sure you use the promo code Jenna or call 1-800-564-8475. That's 1-800-564-8475 and use the promo code Jenna. So this is a big week to focus on the border crisis, and the State of the Union is coming up on Thursday. How on earth is Joe Biden going to convince the American people to not believe what we are seeing and hearing for ourselves? Josh Hammer is an editor at Newsweek and the host of The Josh Hammer Show, and he joins me now. So I think that Biden is just going to give his kind of flippant, everything's great, and then we'll have the GOP response. But are Americans actually going to believe Biden's message?
Yeah, Jenna, it's the whole "don't believe your whole lying eyes" message, right? I mean, it's really funny when you look at the history of the quote unquote Bidenomics term. The Democrats tried so hard, Jenna. They tried so hard to make Bidenomics a thing. They tried so hard to get it out there as the message that Democrats were going to run on in 2022 and 2024. Back last September, it was during the opening kickoff of the NFL season. I remember it very well, right around Labor Day. They had a national ad buy in Detroit, where the auto industry is in a lot of cities, trying to make Bidenomics the message. Does anyone talk about Bidenomics anymore? I mean, that message has just totally gone away because the American people just aren't buying it, because they still say, according to the consistent polls, that the economy was much better under Donald Trump, that inflation was much more under control under Donald Trump, that immigration, border sanity, basically everything, but no matter how you look at it, happened to be a lot more under control under his predecessor than under his current presidency. Part of Joe Biden's problem is obviously the fact that he is an octogenarian and senile, and he is mentally and physically incompetent for the highest office in the land. But part of it is more messaging and communicative, Jenna. He has never been able to actually have a message. Everywhere he has looked, his message has failed to stick. The Bidenomics is the latest example. The Afghanistan withdrawal was really another kind of seminal moment where he tried to kind of say this, we're withdrawing, I'm going to make you safer moment. But the American people weren't buying that either, because they saw the images from the TV screens of people literally falling off the cargo planes. His presidency has been unmitigated disaster. The stakes are very high Thursday night. They're going to try really hard to reset one final time. I don't think it's going to work.
Well, and that's all true, Josh Hammer. And I think any reasonable American would say, of course, we were all better off under President Trump. And I think that you rightly, right after Iowa, said this is the time that we need to unite around President Trump. And it took me a little longer to get there, but I've gotten there because I've seen just how heinous the Biden administration truly is when it comes to protecting American safety, not just some of these other critical issues, but truly how blatantly disrespectful and lack of security this is for the American people to facilitate this kind of border crossing. And yet we saw with the results from Super Tuesday last night that the Democrats in their primary in most of the states, it was something like over 80% for Joe Biden. I mean, what does that tell you about the mindset of Democrats? Do they not see this?
Well, if you look at Democrats' own polling, what they tell pollsters, a majority of them actually also, or at least what they tell pollsters, a majority of them this past year, Jenna, and throughout 2023, they consistently said that they did not want Joe Biden to run again. Most Democrats told pollsters that they wanted a different candidate in 2024. But, good luck making that happen at this point. That ship has obviously sailed. There was a long concerted effort in liberal elite media and in liberal political halls of power more generally to try to get Joe Biden to step aside. There were a lot of influential columnists that were trying to get him to step aside there. David Ignatius of the Washington Post, Michelle Goldberg of the New York Times. It's not going to happen. He's the candidate at this point. Democrats are stuck with him, which, oh, by the way, Jenna, the flip side of that, the natural corollary, is that as catastrophically unpopular as Joe Biden is, Democrats are going to have to double down on all of the lawfare against Donald Trump. They had that 9-0 defeat at the Supreme Court on Monday in the case out of your home state, Colorado. But when it comes to Jack Smith's prosecutions, they're going to have to double down because Joe Biden is not going to win independent swing state voters at this point. So therefore, they've got to take the lawfare straight to their opponents.
Yeah, and that raises the question of presidential immunity and how much damage do you think that might do to President Trump if the court, which is what I think will happen, and a lot of other legal scholars, that the Supreme Court will draw maybe a different line than the DC Circuit Court, but ultimately decide that while presidential immunity does cover official acts, and hopefully it doesn't lapse after the 4 or 8 years in office for a president, that President Trump is still answerable in a court of law for actions that he took that were outside of his official capacity. If and when that is the opinion of the Supreme Court, how much will that potentially damage him heading into November with independent and moderate voters?
So I think the most likely outcome, Jenna, for the immunity case, the court will probably issue a mixed opinion whereby they say that some acts fall within the core Article 2 presidential powers, function, and therefore those acts cannot be criminally prosecuted after a president leaves office. But by contrast, there are some acts that clearly fall outside of that ambit and can be prosecuted. And most Americans can reasonably discern the difference. There is a difference between a core decision to fire a bureaucrat or to put troops abroad. That's commander-in-chief power. That's constitutional protection, versus hiring an assassin to, execute a political rival. These things are demonstrably different. So I think the court will basically say there are some acts that fall within the immunity bucket and some that do not. And then they'll probably remand it. They'll kick it down to a lower court to try to discern whether the alleged conduct that Jack Smith has in this indictment falls into category 1 or category 2. All of that will have the effect of further dilatory tactics and further kicking this can down the road. And if that actually ends up being the case, it's only going to help Trump, because the Trump legal team's mentality right now, their goal, to kind of use a football analogy, is to basically run out the clock. And right now, I think they're looking pretty good when it comes to that against Jack Smith.
Yeah, and that's actually a really interesting analysis. And if that remand does happen, then that also sets up a likely appeal that whatever lower court decides what acts fall into which buckets. Of course, that can then be appealed potentially all the way up to the Supreme Court, and as questions of law in terms of what is covered by presidential immunity versus what isn't. And so overall, for conservatives, when we are being faced with all of this lawfare and that emphasis by the left on President Trump versus what's going on at the border, how should we tailor our messaging to focus on what actually matters? And we have about 45 seconds left.
Yeah, real quick, Jenna, I think immigration is the issue. I think that the economy obviously is an important issue as well. But I think that Republicans this fall really should run on immigration by far above all else. Joe Biden's approval ratings on immigration are -25 to -30, depending on the poll. He's catastrophically unpopular. It's obviously been Trump's signature issue going back to his descent down the gilded escalator back in Trump Tower in 2015. This issue plays perfectly for the new Republican Party coalition, a more blue-collar working class coalition. It is the issue to run on right now, and I think it'll be a winning message for Republicans this fall.
Josh Hammer, editor-at-large for Newsweek and host of The Josh Hammer Show. Always appreciate your comments, and we'll be right back with more conservative analysis here on Jenna Ellis Tonight. Throughout history, there are clear moments that define our nation's path, and now you can own a piece of that history. I'm thrilled to announce the official Newt Gingrich contract with America coin from our friends at Legacy Precious Metals in partnership with Speaker Gingrich. This limited edition 1 ounce 99.99% silver coin commemorates the historic victory in 1994 when the Republican Party, under Speaker Gingrich's guidance, took control of Congress. The Newt Gingrich contract with America coin also symbolizes the transformative political platform that led to the landmark achievements like the overhaul of the U.S. welfare system and the Balanced Budget Act. This is a limited edition coin that will sell out. So whether you're looking for the perfect gift or you want to own a piece of history, act fast before they run out. The Newt Gingrich contract with America coin is more than an investment. It's a tribute to honest government and America. You can order it online at newtgingrichsilvercoin.com. That's newtgingrichsilvercoin.com, and use promo code Jenna, that's JENNA, to get $10 off your purchase. Go to newtgingrichsilvercoin.com now. More shakeups continue on Capitol Hill as we head rapidly toward the November 2024 election, with Senator Kyrsten Sinema announcing her resignation yesterday. And of course, you'll remember that she was elected as a Democrat from Arizona and then switched to independent. So it's very interesting and maybe opens the field for the Republican and Democratic candidates that are vying for that Senate position in November. But listen to what Kyrsten Sinema had to say.
In 2017, I warned we were approaching a crossroads. Our democracy was weakened by government dysfunction and the constant pull to the extremes by both political parties. I promised I would do my best to fix it, to protect and defend our Constitution, to listen to others without judging, to focus on what unites us, and to make Americans' lives better. Through listening, understanding, and compromise, we delivered tangible results that make America safer, stronger, and more prosperous. Yet, despite modernizing our infrastructure, ensuring clean water, delivering good jobs and safer communities, Americans still choose to retreat farther to their partisan corners. These solutions are considered failures, either because they're too much or not nearly enough. It's all or nothing. The outcome, less important than beating the other guy.
Well, joining me now is David Reaboi, who is a fellow at the Claremont Institute. And David, she sounded a lot like a Democrat in that clip, but there's a lot of speculation in Washington that she only announced her resignation, that she's not running for re-election because she really didn't have a pathway now that she's become an independent rather than a Democrat.
Right. Yes, I mean, I think that's true. What struck me when watching her clip, especially in the last 24 hours, was the comparison or the difference between her brand of, let's say, moderate and John Fetterman's brand of moderate. And you see how Fetterman is a lot more successful than, or has been a lot more successful than Sinema has when it comes to, when it comes to kind of occupying that ground. Now, it's very interesting because Sinema has always been, and she continues to be in the last message that you just played, a kind of technocratic moderate. And, sometimes she's with the left, sometimes she's with, the soft right. And I mean, it's not very surprising that in America that I affectionately call the late Republic, there isn't much call for technocratic moderation, and it is what it is. Fetterman, on the other hand, is anything but a technocrat. He'd probably admit as much, and that really frees him. Here's a guy who's not talking with the traditional moderate rhetoric of, both parties are this, both parties are that, and I'm so smart, I'm going to come up with a compromise to find a third way, et cetera, et cetera. I think what makes Fetterman successful is he just does the thing. If there is a position that he agrees with the Democrats on, he's going to go with that. If there's a position like on the border, like on Israel, like on some other things where he goes with the right, he just does it. And I think that's the model that's successful.
Yeah, I don't think we really expected Fetterman to be kind of the Manchurian candidate and actually be really reasonable on Capitol Hill. And I think you're right that that's what Kyrsten Sinema was striving toward. And it may have been to her disadvantage that she ended up leaving her party so that she doesn't get those resources where Fetterman still claims to be a Democrat. So his party can't exactly oust him in the same ways that they clearly were successful with Kyrsten Sinema. But let's turn then to the Arizona Senate race for her seat. Kari Lake is, of course, the GOP favorite in that seat. But this, I think, plays to her disadvantage because a lot of conservatives were hoping that Kyrsten Sinema would actually split the vote between moderate Democrats who liked her versus the more true blue that were going to support the Democrat in the race. So how do you see this congressional race shaping up come November?
Well, look, I mean, I'm not a fan of Kari Lake. I think the GOP really stepped in it by promoting someone with such little credentials. But again, I mean, this is the era, the late Republic era we're living in, is that nobody really cares about someone's record. Nobody really cares about someone's ability to do the job. What it comes down to is that the GOP base, not just in Arizona but elsewhere as well, they basically want talk show hosts. They want someone to mirror back the anger that they have. And they, I guess, have already been, blackpilled themselves into thinking that there's no way that anyone can fix anything. So if that's the case and no one can ever fix anything, then why not elect someone who has no track record and really no chance to get anything done.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point, David, that, we are just nominating, I think, a lot of these so-called America First candidates that really don't have any experience, or I would say even desire to truly govern. And that's what I see about Kari Lake. And I don't even see her being a true conservative. I mean, she's very openly promoting the LGBTQ agenda by going and receiving awards from log cabin Republicans, very much this kind of big tent ideology that is not stalwart conservatism. But if we are in this mindset that Republicans are just glorified network spokespeople, and that's what they're using their platform in office, then what's the point of even electing GOP representatives and senators who really don't care about governing?
That's a very good question. I would say that it's kind of pointless. Look, it's a GOP based problem, and it comes from a lot of things. I mean, I think the prototype of this that we saw is the fact that Congress no longer legislates, number one. Mm-hmm. And so they
David Reaboi, we're going to have to leave it there, but really appreciate your comments, and I think you're so wise to call the GOP back to saying, let's elect people who actually desire to govern, like maybe a Ron DeSantis here in Florida. We'll be right back with more here on Jenna Ellis Tonight. It's been bizarro world watching capitalist companies like Bud Light and now Doritos that are facing backlash for hiring transgender activists to promote their brand when nobody, literally nobody, is asking for this. This headline coming from the New York Times this morning: Doritos fires transgender influencer over controversial tweets about doing quote unquote thuggish things to a minor. This goes on to say Doritos Spain terminated their relationship with transgender influencer Ivan Gonzalez Renedo, who goes by the stage name Samantha Hudson, after the company came under intense backlash for posting a video on Instagram featuring Hudson. The spokesperson also revealed that Hudson has been terminated from the company due to making controversial comments in the past. Quote, "We have ended the relationship and stopped all related campaign activity due to the comments," the spokesperson said. "We strongly condemn words or actions that promote violence or sexism of any kind." Notably, the spokesperson did not actually condemn these so-called minor attracted persons or pedophilia, which was clearly some of the content that was alleged to have been posted by this person going by the name Samantha Hudson. But it begs the question, why is the world, and especially the leftist activists, trying to promote the LGBT and especially the T and the Q, the trans and the queer, over and above what the science actually says about how harmful this so-called lifestyle is to anyone who participates? This report came from the Daily Signal, and this is the headline that is actually by my next guest. From the Daily Signal: liver cancer in teens, reduced sexual function, lack of consent, internal docs reveal experimental nature of so-called, quote unquote, gender affirming care. So Tyler O'Neill, who's the managing editor of the Daily Signal, joins me now. Tyler, I was frankly truly sickened by the research that your article revealed. So talk about this a little bit. And I think there is such a natural conflict, to put it mildly, between what the left is advocating for and the scientific results of this lifestyle.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jenna. I think these documents show, as if we didn't know this already, that WPATH is an activist organization masquerading as a healthcare group. And what we see time and time again is this transgender ideology pushed on children, pushed on adults, and these experimental medical interventions have horrible effects that we don't even fully understand. And even the doctors, the main thing that I got out of going through all of these files that Michael Schellenberger posted in these WPATH internal files, the main thing was that these doctors don't really know. Like, they're constantly raising questions. They're saying, hey, is this normal? Is this normal? This happened with one of my patients. How can I solve it? And many of the issues, these are not small issues. These are, oh, I'm worried that my kid's not going to grow to her full height because we're putting her on puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones, in this case, testosterone. Or, there are concerns where adult men who are identifying as women and taking estrogen are suddenly having pain when they're, when in the natural course of events, a man gets aroused. These people are going through excruciating pain when that happens. And oftentimes what you see in these chat rooms is the discussion, oh, if he just gets rid of his male genitalia, that'll solve the issue. As if this was a natural solution to a serious, painful problem. And, the ideology here, the very idea that the solution, if somebody feels, if you're struggling with gender confusion, I think gender confusion happens. And I think a lot of psychological issues are probably underlying these gender confusion situations that we're seeing. But the solution shouldn't be, oh, we're going to encourage you to change your body to make it resemble the opposite sex, when it can't really become the opposite sex because that's biologically impossible. And the only solution is therapy to affirm this false identity, not any therapy to address underlying issues. And the real thing that stood out to me, and I put it at the front of the headline here, was that these doctors know that there have been cases of liver cancer in teenagers who are undergoing these so-called treatments. What you see is you put somebody on cross-sex hormones, that's going to mess up their biochemistry. And what we've seen in multiple cases are extremely early cancer diagnoses. These lumps that are showing up in these people's livers, these are not healthy and these are not normal. And this is not something that we can overlook. And when these organizations are called to account, and this is the last thing because I've been covering in Florida, the Agency for Healthcare Administration, under the direction of Governor DeSantis, issued rules saying that these transgender interventions are too experimental for Medicaid to cover. And this rule has been challenged by Lambda Legal and some other organizations, and a judge issued a ruling last year striking down the rule. Now it's on appeal. But amid this litigation, you had many doctors, and even some like Dr. Levine, Stephen Levine, not to be confused with Rachel Levine. Stephen Levine was with the organization that now is WPATH, before it became WPATH, and he said that this organization's, standards of care are not reliable. They're not built on science. And these organizations refuse to hand over internal documents showing how they develop their standards of care. And in particular, that's huge for WPATH, because what we've now seen in these new documents is that when they come up with these standards of care, they don't really know what they're talking about. There's so much confusion among even the people at the front end of this, this horrific scientific experiments movement, where they're saying, look, this is in its infancy. And I'm like, if you are pushing on America's kids a medical treatment that you acknowledge is in its infancy, that's a serious problem.
So well said, Tyler Nealon. Your work is so appreciated because you are uncovering the truth. And I thought that the science was supposed to have the very first thing in the Hippocratic Oath, first do no harm. And we're seeing that the harm here is so devastating. I would encourage all of you, read this article. Make sure that you have a strong stomach before you do. But this is so important that conservatives continue to call out the truth. That's all the time we have for here on Jenna Ellis tonight. You can always reach me and my team, Jenna at SalemNewsChannel.com.